Support for WCBU's On Deck comes from Jaguar Land Rover Peoria on Allen Road, providing personalized service with every certified pre-owned Land Rover. Benefits include a 165-point inspection and a 1-year unlimited mile warranty. More at jaguarlandroverpeoria.com.
A new musical tells the story of rural Illinois. That's just one of the things you'll want to hear about to start your day for Monday, July 15th. I'm Colin Shope, and this is WCBU's On Deck. First on deck today, Washington's busy and bumpy Business Route 24 has some patchwork slated for later this year, but a larger overhaul is still years out. Public Information Officer Paul Wapple says the Illinois Department of Transportation plans to mill and overlay the road this year, wrapping up sometime in late November.
We, kind of grind up what's there now and put another layer, a new layer on and of asphalt on, and that should be really be a big improvement.
IDOT also plans to improve ADA pedestrian ramps along the road sometime in early 2025, which Wapple says will be a 50-day project. The mill and overlay and ramp improvements add up to $5 million of Rebuild Illinois funding. This will include some changes to traffic on Route 24 this fall and winter.
We'll use flaggers for that, and there'll be some lane closures during working hours, but then posted and everything when that happens.
The larger reconstruction project is a multi-year program. Wapple says the department is still selecting a consultant for the $43 million undertaking. They hope to have one picked by October. Once selected, Wapple says construction probably won't start in earnest for 5 to 7 years. Here are some other stories we're following in the WCBU newsroom. The steps at the Peoria County Courthouse's Main Street entrance are set to get an overhaul. And the Peoria County Board wants GFL to move ahead with the construction of Landfill 3. Plus, expect delays on westbound Interstate 474 today at the Shade-Loman Bridge. You can find more of these stories and all the details at WCBU.org. A 16-county region in western Illinois acquired the nickname Forgotonia more than half a century ago. It's a nickname still in use today, and Forgotonia is the title of a new show of original material by a Macomb-based musician. Rich Ager tells us about it.
The show has been years in the making. This was recorded during a rehearsal in January. Chris Valillo is the creative force behind the project. Forgotonia was a political stunt in the early 1970s to draw attention to the lack of funding for road improvements in the region. It worked, and Chris arrived in Forgotonia in the mid-70s on the first wave of highway funding that came into the region.
I was hired as a staff archaeologist for Western Illinois University to work on what would become, 30 years later, mind you, the Kansas City-Chicago Expressway.
As a musician, Chris also started writing a series of songs explaining the region through the eyes of an outsider. The title song, Forgotonia, was started in the 1980s. Chris was writing music for what would become his first recording, but the song was not finished, so it got set aside and was, forgotten about.
In the haste of doing the recording, producing the recording, and everything that's involved in that, the notes from that song just ended up stuck in a drawer. And they sat there until 2017 when I was cleaning out the house after my folks passed, and I came across them.
Chris says through the benefit of decades of hindsight, he realized that he captured the essence of small-town rural Illinois, and he realized he better finish the song.
Little town news, rusty old horseshoes, hanging up above the weather door.
The new show will feature Chris on stage with a couple other crackerjack musicians, jazz mandolin player Don Sternberg and acoustic bass player Mark Edelstein. And they will be accompanied by a series of images of Forgotonia that will be projected throughout the performance. Those are the work of award-winning photographer Tim Schroll.
I've always said that Tim does visually what I try to do musically.
Chris went through thousands of Tim's photos. The two then discussed the images that each picked out. They talked about the music, and the show started coming together. Chris says he enjoyed working with Tim because of his sense of proportion and his sense of light and dark, which are all critical to his black and white photos. Chris calls it an old-school Ansel Adams approach to photography.
Okay, going into the last A part, 2, 3.
Forgotonia will debut on July 20th at the Hainline Theater on the Western Illinois University campus in Macomb. The show begins at 7 o'clock. Tickets are $20 and can be ordered through Chris Valillo's website. Chris says in putting together the show, he had to decide whether it should be a trip down memory lane or a celebration of the region today, or perhaps something else.
I think the point is to celebrate the heritage, to re-envision what rural Illinois is all about, and to express it through the eyes of someone who isn't a product of it.
Some people did not like the term Forgotonia 50-plus years ago, and a few still fight against it today. But Chris calls it a brilliant political act that celebrates the area's heritage while publicizing that the region is isolated and often overlooked when it comes to state and federal funding.
And now people are embracing that as a fact that, if you want to know what small-town America life is, come to Unforgettable Forgotonia, because we live it every day.
And you can live it through Chris Valillo's music and Tim Schroll's photos in the show Forgotonia. Rich Egger reporting.
And that's all for today. You can subscribe to WCBU's On Deck podcast on the NPR app, Apple, or Spotify.